We're going to be taking a look at a HTML iframe in this particular video, and it's all about how to display a particular web page in the current web page that you are really working on. And with that, I just simply mean that you can actually display a different web page in a particular web page. Let's say you're working on a page called a page 1 and you want to display the contents of page 2 in that particular page called a page 1. You can actually do that. It could also sometimes be like an external website that you basically want to display its content in your own current page, especially if you don't want your user to maybe leave your website for any reason. So you can actually use something like an iframe to do that. So I want to demo that for you guys so that you capture the real thing that I'm actually talking about. It's really simple to implement, so let's do that right now. So if you take a look at the screen, you see how I'm just basically displaying code Kinder website within this particular web page. So take a look at that.
So to show you an example of that of the iframes, if I open up this folder right here, we do have HTML and CSS folder, and then I do have iframes as a folder also created within this particular folder, and I have that opened up in my Visual Studio Code right here. All right, and I notice that I actually switched my editor right here. So if you're still using something like that of the Notepad++, that's just completely fine. So all you need to do is you're going to just have to type out whatever that we type on this particular page right now. All right, but I'm just using this just to speed things up. All right, and what I want to do right here is I want to go ahead and throw in my HTML boilerplate right here. I want to change the title right here. So this is going to be iframe like that, and we can get down here, and then within this place, let's throw in our h1 in here, and then we could just basically call it the same thing to have that close. So if we save the changes, of course, if we try to open this up in our browser, so I'm going to open up iframes, then double click on this. You see that really it kind of opens right here. Look at it right here. So we do have HTML iframe right here, and there's nothing much inside of it for now. But what I want to do is that first of all, let me show you the syntax for that of the HTML boilerplate. So let me throw a comment in here and just say iframe. So the syntax is really very simple. All you need to do is to open a tag called the iframe, and then you can actually go ahead and then close that right here. So this is going to still be iframe, but within this particular place you're going to have src, and this src is just basically going to designate the URL that you just basically want to open, or the page you want to open, right? So there is another one, it's pretty new, called a title, and you use this particular title right here to just describe what this particular iframe actually has. Okay, so that's just basically what it is. So with this you can actually create whatever you want to create. So if, for instance, if I save the changes in here and if we go back to the browser right here and then refresh, you notice that there is something really showing up right here. So we'll have something like a box around this place, and it has some border, right? But then it says something like it may not it may have been moved or edited. That means that the URL is actually not actively working right here. All right, so what I want to do in here, I want to like go ahead and then see how is it that I can actually display my own website within this particular offline page right here. So it's actually called a code Kinder. Open that up, and so I'm going to just copy this particular URL right here. All right, so if we go back to our editing space right here, I want to paste that URL that I just got right here. Look at it right here. So because it's an online website, that's why I'm just getting the domain name with HTTPS right here. Okay, so for instance, if the web page that you want to just basically display is just still within your local directory right here, you may not even need to like get the HTTPS page right here. Okay, so this is like an external website. Let's say that what I'm working on right here is my own personal blog, and I want to display another person's blog within my website. You can actually get the full path and then put it right here, or the full domain. So if we save the changes in here, and I want to, let's give this a title. Let's say this is code Kinder official website, something like that. So if you save the changes in here, and I will go back to the browser and then refresh here, you notice that this is actually going to search and then bring in my website within this particular place right here. You see that? So that's just basically how that is actually done. So we can actually display a web page that doesn't actually belong to us in our own website if they kind of allow that. All right, so I allowed that to happen within my own website. That's why it's actually working right here. And some website, like big websites, may not be like kind of allow you to do that. All right, maybe something like Facebook, because if you change this URL that we do have right here, and I'm going to do this, it's going to be facebook.com, and then save the changes, it's not going to be reachable because Facebook made it in such a way that they will not allow you to like reach that website. They're going to refuse that. All right, and that's just for security purposes. So if you want to like display it, you have to use something like JavaScript to do that. Even Google nowadays doesn't actually kind of allow people to do that. All right, so I believe Google also will not allow you to do this. If I go to google.com, let me change this from what it is right now. Let me remove the S right here, and for refresh, it will also still refuse that, right? It will refuse that, guys. So that's just basically what that is. And what I want to do next is to like for us to kind of take a look at the height and the width of this particular iframe that we're basically kind of seeing right here. All right. So if for instance I want to make use of my website in here, let's say this is going to be codekinder.com. I want to go back to codekinder right there, and want to like want to like work on the width and then the height of the website. We can actually do that. How do we do it? We can use height right here, height attributes, and then go ahead and then set the size right here. And by default, it's actually set in pixels, right? So if I do something like 200 pixels right here, I don't even need to enter pixel right there. So I'm just going to do 200, and then for the width, if I do width right here, then go ahead and then set that to be equal to, let's say maybe it's actually going to be 400. If I save the changes, you're going to see that it's going to affect the width and the height of this particular web page right here. See how that is actually working? So it's affected that. If you increase that, it's actually going to kind of do that. So I'm going to do this to change this to 400, refreshing here. You see that it's kind of doing that. You can also do the same thing to the height, increase the height or reduce the height, whatever you want to do. All right, I'm going to make that 1000, save the changes. See that it's just kind of working. So just imagine how am I kind of displaying a different website in my own website right here, right? So, and it's not just going to be only the websites that are basically outside of your own domain or outside of your own work environment. For instance, if I save the changes in here and then copy what is in here, and if I do maybe a new page and then call this page 2.html, then open that up, paste everything that I got right here, and I want to take away this iframe. And what I want to do is just to say so if you want to display this particular web page in this particular place, you wouldn't actually need to add the full path in here just the way that we did. All you need to do is to enter the absolute path, if I do page 2.html and save the changes. You're going to notice that if I refresh this page right here, you see that it kind of displays that particular web page right here. And if you are curious, maybe you are not quite sure it's coming from that place, if I do style right here, and let's say we'll set this to color, and let's call that navy, terminate that. If we go back in here, refresh, you see that the color of the text in here changes. So that proves the fact that that page is actually coming from a different page right here. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is the borders that you are seeing right here. If you want to remove it, it's actually possible. So if we go back to, let's go back to index, and let's say you want to remove that particular border that are actually there, you can use your style attribute and set that to, so that is actually called a border. So if you do border right here, and what you want to do is to go ahead and set that to something like none. So this is going to be colon rather, and you go ahead and then do something like none within this particular place. Terminate, save the changes, and if you refresh right here, you're going to see that the border will kind of disappear. So that's just how to basically change the border if you want to like do that. All right. Another thing you can actually do is you can also use your CSS to also change even the style of that particular border, even the color of the border. So if you ever want to have the border, if you want to have it, and by default, of course, it has a border. But right now, let's say that you've already removed it before now, we have seen that. But let's say, for instance, I want to bring that in. If I want to do 2 pixels right here, and let's say I'm going to just call this solid. Of course, by default it's a solid, so I'm going to just do something like dash right here just to have a different style in here. And let's say that the color is actually going to be set to all right, so that means we're going to use red color in here. We should remember to terminate this particular line before we specify the color attribute in here or the color property. So if we save the changes in here and then we'll go back in here, we refresh, you see that that border comes back, but this time around is dashed. All right, so that's just the style of the border that I want to use right now, and then see how that is actually looking. So that's just basically how you can also go ahead and then change the size, change the style, and then the color of the iframe. All right, if you want to do that, it's completely also up to you. So the next thing or the last thing I want to show you right now is actually going to be a way to like add a target attribute. All right, if I do that, I want to resize, let me even set it to defaults so I wouldn't actually be scrolling before I can actually see all the things that I basically want to see. All right, so this is just how it looks like right now. So if you want to add like a link right here, and what I mean by that is if you want to like go ahead and visit a particular page within your website or any other person's website who allows iframe, you can add a link within that of your iframe. Once you click on it, you can designate the iframe you want that that to like display in. All right, so you can have 2 iframes or 3 iframes, and maybe you want it to like display on a particular iframe. You can actually do that. So to do it is really very simple. If we go back in here, and we do have our first iframes right here, right? And I'm going to copy, and maybe let's just do BR right here to break the line. Paste this, and what I want to do right here is that I want it in such a way that when someone clicks on a particular link, let's put a link down here. This is going to be a paragraph, and within this paragraph I'm going to just have a link in there, and within this place, let's say it's actually going to go to my website again. This is going to be codekinder.com, and that's just basically the page that once people kind of click on the link that I'm about to create, that's where it's actually going to like open. All right, but then if we do that right here, we're going to need to first of all, let me just try to close this, and let's say open code kinder, and then we can go ahead and terminate the a tag and then the p tag right here. So we're going to need quite a couple of things in here, because if we save the changes the way that it is right here, and we actually, so I just basically, let me take away this for now, just set that to empty strings in here, then save the changes. If I go back in here, sorry about this, so I'm gonna go to this particular browser and then refresh. You notice that we do have like 2 iframes right here, and the way that it is right now, if I hit on this open code Kindle link right here, I expect that to like open up within this particular iframe that we do have in here. All right, but it's not going to work that way. So if I hit on this once, you're going to notice that it's going to open that up on a fresh tab, right? So that's just how that is actually going to work. So I want to close this. What I want to do is to make sure that it opens within this particular place instead of opening on a new tab. And if you want to do that, it's really very simple. You can within here, you can set the targets. First of all, do target right here, and you can set that to be equal to a name. Let's call this something like code kinder, and remember that this code kinder name that we just kind of passed in here needs to like come from this particular iframe that we created earlier right here. Okay, so with that, it means that you need an extra attribute called a name right here. Set that to be equal to, and you can just basically call that code kinder right here. All right, so you know that the target right here is actually going to look for this right here. So once you try to hit on the open button right here that we have below here, it's going to attempt to open within this particular iframe that we do have right here. All right, so if we go back here, let's refresh this page, and if you're hitting here, and you see that it opens up that particular web page within the iframe that I specified. All right, you see how that is actually working. So it's going to go ahead and open up within the iframe that I kind of specified, and that is just basically what that is. It's really very simple. So all you need to do is to just make sure that you kind of give that a name, just like I did right here, and then you set a target to use that particular name. All right, so once somebody clicks on this, it goes ahead to look for this and then open up on that particular iframe. So hopefully you're going to use this to build something great, guys, and I hope that you kind of understand that. And if you like the video, just feel free to hit the like button, and if you have any questions, just feel free to go to the comment section and then drop your question right there. I will respond to you guys. Thanks for watching. For now, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye for now.